What is up, preppers? We are live again. And yes, even though the background's different, this is another Prepper podcast episode, technically. I'm joined by a previous guest and a good friend of mine, Ration Nerd. How you doing, Ration Nerd?
What's happening, guys? How you doing?
I'm good. It's great to have you here. Last time we spoke, your channel had about 400 subscribers. Doing a bit better now, right?
Yeah, a little bit, Certainly
Yeah.
can't complain, you know.
Nice. We're up to 1,000, nearly 1,400 now. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, you might be right. I didn't check today, so it's something like that. It's 1,400 plus. It's doing pretty
Yeah,
good.
it's quality. Every video you put out is really good quality. And
I
hello
don't
to
know about
people in the
that.
chat. Make sure you can hear us. Give us a 5x5 in the chat. Let us know you can hear us okay. Otherwise, we're just talking to ourselves and you guys are just watching us mime. Just like
Nice.
that. Miss Worm has posted Ration Nerd's channel on the chat because she's my awesome moderator and she can hear us. So we're talking politics, not rations today, not rations.
That's all right. I got a little bit of everything going on up here.
But politics. Actually, before we talk politics, we've got a few people in here who, if you don't know who Ration Nerd is and you haven't subscribed, I'm very disappointed in you. You must go and do that straight away. And I will show you what he's all about.
Let's not do it.
Let's not do it.
Oh, ow, God damn it.
There we go.
Epic, dude. That was epic. That was the best thing ever. Like, I need to borrow that. Like,
You can have that. That's yours.
that's awesome, dude. That's like the best. That's like the best editing stuff I've ever seen. That's badass.
I just thought, I just did it this afternoon. I thought I need to show a little preview.
I just need to get you to edit my videos. They'll be so much more epic now.
Do you think I have time to edit more videos?
I know, right? I have time. I've hard enough time editing my own and having a real job at the same time. Let alone that was awesome, though, dude. Thanks. That was bitching.
No problem. My pleasure. In the chat, we do have Philip Hull. How you doing, Philip? Miss Worm, the moderator, Thomas from Austria, Lady J, and several other people who are not talking yet. But we're talking politics, and we're not talking UK politics. We're talking USA politics. So you've had your warning. If you stay after this and you get offended by either of our opinions, tough shit. So that's the way we do it here. So first question, do you have a president at the moment, Ration Nerd? Is Biden even alive? What's going on over there?
I mean, that's a really good question, right? So let me preface this entire conversation with the fact that if you're anybody that's watching this, if you're on the left or if you're on the right, just don't even bother. Because I'm right down the middle. Like, I believe I'm for people. And in this conversation, I'll be speaking on behalf of American people. And obviously, I'm not speaking on behalf of the serious left or the serious right people, but just your normal, average, everyday people that just want to live their lives. So I know a lot about politics. I follow everything that's going on because I'm a prepper, but I'm not married to one side or the other. I'm not like, I'm not a stormtrooper. Like I'm not like, in Trump's camp, and I'm certainly not in Biden's camp because he's a retard. But is he even there? Like there, or actually still there in person? I couldn't answer that question because AI and CGI nowadays, you can embody doubles, those fucking rubber masks that they have now that can make you pretty much look like anybody.
You can go and watch Tupac, a 3D version of Tupac on stage, right? These days,
Right?
a digital one.
Right? Seriously. So, the question is, I don't really know for sure. Is he physically there? Maybe. Is he there mentally? Absolutely not. Like,
No,
dude
it's
checked out a long time ago.
yeah, and it's scary because like my partner's a care worker in the UK. She deals with dementia patients, and she saw this months and months ago. Like when you were seeing him, like she's like, it's clear to her that he's got issues, you know. And this guy's
Yeah.
got his finger on the button, right?
I don't really know if he's got his finger on anything except for maybe like up his nose or something like that. Otherwise, I mean, realistically, it's kind of like every other country, I guess, or a lot of the other NATO countries.
Yeah.
Is the actual leader of the country the leader? Or do they have somebody that's still pulling their strings?
Well, this is
So
we go down massive conspiracy alley then, don't we? We
yeah.
could spiral with that one.
So does he have his finger on the button? I'd say no. I mean, if
No.
he is actually still there in his physical person, he's not there in his mental faculties. So I'm sure if he said, push the button, nobody would listen to him.
Yeah,
So
they probably won't
somebody's
let him
on
brew
his
his
phone.
own coffee at this stage.
Yeah. And it's certainly not Kamala Harris because she's about as vapid in the brain as she would literally, like, she's another puppet. Somebody's got their hand firmly up her ass, telling her what to say, and it's a
Yeah.
mess.
This is this is like you bring me nicely on to the next thing, because the media coverage over here, it would have mainstream media, would have us believe that Kamala's winning in all the polls and she's the most popular one and she's going to fly through this and absolutely destroy Trump. But everything I see on social media tells me the opposite. What's the actual feeling over there?
I guess it really depends on where you are. So
Yeah.
there's, part of the problem is that there really is a rift of, there's a really big rift in the country. So there's a huge portion of the people, and I would say probably the vast, or probably a 70% majority, they're going to try to they're going to vote for Trump because people are tired of the same old garbage. They're tired of the tax policies. They're tired of immigration problems. They're tired of a lot of crap that is going on under the Democratic, where I would say the Democrat side, the left side
Yeah.
of policy. And then you have a lot of people in urban areas that are just going to vote Democrat because they think that's what's best for them, or they've been brainwashed that way. They don't really vote on policy. They just vote because that's like their team red, team blue, because we have here in the United States, we have one more choice than a dictatorship.
Yeah.
So we have two choices.
We
You
we
get
are
Democrat
almost
or
were the same.
Republican.
Yeah,
Right.
we almost were the same, and I believe that's why Labour got into power this time, because people didn't want the Blues in, so they got the Reds in, and everyone else seems like a too far out candidate. But you do have third party candidates for presidency, right?
It doesn't matter. There, we do have other parties. The Green Party, the Libertarian Party. There are other parties and independents, etc. They're never allowed by the current system to actually get on the ballot. So the Green Party, I mean, they're on the ballot. You can vote for them, but there's a lot of states where they're not even allowed to be on the ballot. You can always write in anybody. Like I could write in Ronald McDonald from McDonald's on there, and I can write him in. But the
Yeah,
reality is your vote for that person doesn't matter at all.
yeah,
So there really is no such thing as a third party candidate here. There's just not enough traction, and there's just too much of the machine that fights against any third party candidates. So you really only have two choices. It's either a Republican or a Democrat. And they're both really just two different paths to the same meat grinder.
yeah.
Whether it's Republican or Democrat, they both want your blood and your money. So that's why I'm just kind of down the middle.
But we're seeing this all over the world at the moment, where people are sick of two-party systems and stuff like that. So more right-wing parties that would have never stood a chance before are starting to make a difference. Like we saw Reform over here. They only got 4 seats, but they got 4 million votes for them, and they're a brand new party. So it just shows like the feeling of the people. Do you think the United States has any party that verges on being like that, where they could potentially make a dent, or is nobody even close?
I don't think there's been enough of the machine that's been scraped away for a third party to really make a viable run for the White House.
Yeah.
The machine is still too embedded, and it's just not going to allow a third party candidate on the ballot in any serious way. So, we're tired. Most Americans are tired of the same thing over here too.
Yeah.
We're tired of the same, liberal policies that are giving away the futures of our children and indebting our children,
Yeah.
several $100,000 a piece, or just in order to pay off the national debt. Where every man, woman, and child in this country would have to cough up $300,000+ or something crazy like that, and that might even be a severe underestimate. So, I was an English major, not a mathematician, so forgive me if I got that wrong. So, yeah, I think people are just tired of the same old shit, and they
Yeah.
want something different. And that's what Trump offers, is a little bit of. And let me preface this with the fact that, and I may catch a lot of hate for this, and I really don't care. I hate Trump. Like, I absolutely hate the man. Like, I do not. I get embarrassed when I think that's the best that we've got to put in the presidency for the U.S. Yeah, I
Mhm.
really don't like Donald Trump, but I'm going to vote for him because his policies are right. I think he is about as presidential as my left ass cheek, and he doesn't belong. He doesn't belong in the White
Yeah.
House. He doesn't belong being the president of the United States, but that is the best choice that we have.
Yeah.
His policies are good. The vast majority of his policies are positive. He did some stuff I don't agree with, but taking everything, weighing the good versus the bad, there's certainly a whole lot more good that he's trying to do than stuff I don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah.
And now that he's partnered with uh, the Kennedys, or what is it, JFK Jr. or whatever, or RFK. Now that he's partnered with the Kennedy is very concerned about food, drug safety, like getting the fluoride out of the water. He's not for big pharma. He's not for big agriculture, and he wants to go after a lot of that stuff. And I'm fully on board with that.
Yeah.
So there's no other vote for me, as far as I'm concerned, than voting for Trump, even though I don't like the man. I
But
don't think he's
it's the lesser of two evils, would it be?
I mean, we're all pretty sick of that, right?
Yeah.
It's always the lesser of two evils. It's like, oh, well, there's nobody good to vote for. I got to vote for one of them. So let's just vote for the one that's going to make my life a little bit better.
It always baffles me because you've got the same problem over there, like you were saying, like inner cities, they'll vote because it's team red and it's team blue, and that's pretty much it. And we have the same over here. And even to the point where I've got family members who voted a certain way, but now after the election, they're now thinking, "Oh crap, what have I done?" Because they're looking at like what this party was 50 years ago, and they've not looked at how much it's changed and how much its policies have changed and what they're actually saying now. They're just thinking it's that same party. Do you have that kind of change, or have they always been the same over there? Has Republican always been exactly the same sort of views?
No, actually, like if you go back in the history of our country, what a lot of Democrats that are hardcore Democrats, what they forget, and to their own detriment, is that the Democratic Party here in the United States actually funded the KKK, which, if you're not familiar with the KKK, they are a seriously racist organization.
Yeah.
And so it was literally the Democrats that were bringing the KKK to the forefront of American society back when, the KKK was a big thing. And they forgot that. And
Wow.
the Republicans were actually the ones that were most in favor of civil rights. And even to this day, if you look at the voting policies of Republicans versus Democrats, they're much more on board with policies that actually benefit minorities and
Yeah.
just benefit your average American citizen versus Democrats. But the Democrats love to say that they're for the average person, but in reality, they're not at all in any way, shape, or form. And I think because we live in like a TikTok society, where everything is just these short little 2-minute videos or 30-second videos, and everybody loves to watch TikTok because it just drains all the intelligence out of your brain. It's just like the political ads. You'll see ads with Kamala Harris on there, like, I'm for the working people and, middle class America. Well, her policies are going to bury middle class America. Her tax policies and her immigration policies, it is and will continue and even be worse if she gets into office. Her policies are going to bury middle class America.
Yeah,
And
we've had the same over here. It literally sounds exactly like what we've had over here. So hopefully they don't get in, because you might take all your pensioners' winter fuel as well and kill off all the pensioners like we're planning to do this winter.
that's absolutely insane, man. Insane. Yeah, and
It is.
people on fixed incomes, like my mom is on a fixed income, right? She's retired and earned that retirement. She worked her whole life for it. And people on fixed incomes, like, how do they deal with the rapid and insane price increases across the board for everything, just from like water?
Yeah.
Like, that was my mom. Her water and sewer bill went up. I can't remember the exact percentage, but I want to say it was like 100+%.
Yeah.
And for somebody on a fixed income, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, it's same over here that they've took off this basically this payment that they give them, this winter fuel allowance that they give pensioners on a certain income, and they've took that off them. And in the same breath, all of our electric and gas has gone up 10%. I know pensioners that were already, even with that allowance wasn't enough to cover the winter. Even with that allowance, would be sat freezing in their house with 3 cardigans on because it's cheaper than putting the heating on. It's just absolute madness. We're going to see the fallout from this come February, March, I'm telling you. Philip Banks said Kamala is a raving, lying globalist psycho. Very opinionated there, Philip.
He's not wrong. I mean, but he's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
And I'm not 100% sure she's all those things really consciously. I think it's more unconscious. She just wants to be the president. She doesn't really care how she gets there. And I don't think that, quite honestly, I don't think she thinks enough about politics and reality. I think she's just there. She's just a body. Like, I want to be president. I want to be president. Nobody cares.
But she
if you want to be president.
She ticks many political correctness boxes, right?
Does she, though?
Female, the first female president and all this. Well, apparently.
Oh yeah, the first African American female. Of course, she's on video saying that she's Indian.
Yeah, well, she'll be the first one of them too, I guess. Scottish Prepper 73 says Biden and Trump are like voting for the 2 old dudes out of the Muppets.
You know what, though? Let's be fair. Like, I can't remember those guys' names, but they're hysterical. The 2 guys that sat up in the little box on the side of the theater. I would take those guys as like a team president, like how they used to do it back in the Roman times. They had 2 consuls, I think it was called. So if you put those 2 guys as like the consuls of the U.S., that'd be great. I'd love to have 2 grumpy old men that would just speak their mind as president instead of like one guy who, like, well, currently probably
has
can't
no mind
breathe without assistance, right? Like, poops his pants everywhere he goes. Yeah, I would take those 2 old Muppets as the president of the U.S. I think that's a great idea, actually.
It's scary when that's the better choice, isn't it? So I'm going to really pick your brain now. Can you explain to our UK viewers the Electoral College, basically how that works? Because when I look at the maps, when it comes, I always follow the election when it's over there. And I'm looking when I'm seeing like 40 points on Texas, but only 6 points on this other one. How's that work? Is it population? Can you explain that through?
It's essentially based on population, so it's not actually a popular vote. So each one of the states is assigned a certain amount of, electoral representatives. So it's based on the population of each state. So it is sort of a popular vote. That's why they call them, over here, they call them swing states. So because a certain state has a larger percentage of electoral votes, you want to carry that state, like you want to win that state. So you have to win the majority of the votes in that state. And once you've won the majority of the votes in that state, let's say, just to make it easy, they get 5. I know that's an inaccurate representation, but let's say they get 5 electoral votes. You win that state. but another state only has 2. So who cares? Not who cares, but it's a whole lot better to swing the state that has 5 electoral votes than 2. So that's
So
essentially how the system works.
do them 5 cannot be split? It wouldn't be like 3 Republican, 2 Democrat. How does that work?
If they win the state, all the electoral college or all the electoral representatives are supposed to cast their vote for the majority vote in their state. So let's say if
Right.
Trump wins Ohio, so Ohio is a swing state. If Trump wins Ohio, then all the electoral representatives have to cast their vote for Trump in the electoral college.
Right. Okay. So as long as they reach that more than 50% tipping point, then they get all the votes in that state.
Correct.
Cool. I mean, that's probably why they campaign in very specific areas, right? I mean,
absolutely, because the swing states carry the election.
Neglected states in that though.
I'm sure.
If you're a state with low points, you've probably never seen a presidential campaign come through, right?
Probably not. I mean, look, the reality of it is you want as many electoral votes as possible. But there are certain states that are more important than others because they have such a large population and they have a large amount of, electoral votes. So you need to campaign in those states a little harder and spend a lot more money. I mean, let's be honest, that's what the whole damn thing is about. It's how much money you're spending.
Yeah.
And so you spend the most money, you campaign the most, you run the most ads in those particular states that are going to get you more votes.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, that's probably a better system than we've got at the moment. So, yeah.
I mean, that's if it works.
Yeah.
There's definitely been nonsense that is going on here that I don't think, our last election was not correct. I mean, in my humble opinion, our last election was completely rigged, and I don't expect that this election is going to be any better.
Yeah, and funnily enough, I remember The Simpsons predicting it when Homer was on a computer trying to vote for one and it was ticking the other. And some people were saying things like that were happening.
Yep. You have the Dominion voting system, which is all throughout the country. And I mean, look, there's been documentaries. There's one that you might even be able to find over there called Hacking Democracy. And they did an entire documentary on how they were able to break into these Dominion voting machines and change the results. So, and with all this, early voting and mail-in voting, and of course you have people here that have been dead for 20 or 30 years still casting their votes. That's just the way it happens. Like, there are dead people that vote every year in the United States, and their votes are counted. So there's gaming that goes on,
Wow.
So in order for Trump to win, there has to be such a huge number of people voting for him that they can't game the system. And even then, I'm not hopeful, to be fair.
So does this boil down to what happened on January 6th?
The whole January 6th thing was such a bunch of bullshit. It really was overblown and overdone. The people that actually walked inside of those public buildings, and they were just absolutely retarded. It was the dumbest thing they could have done. There's also a whole lot of footage that have come out of the Capitol Police, which for the people in the UK, the Capitol Police, it's their direct job to police and protect the Capitol. So they were letting protesters in. They were opening gates and letting them in. So that's a setup.
Yeah.
If they were really doing, I mean, I'm sure they were instructed to do that by someone, so they were just following orders. But that's a complete setup, and it's been way overblown. The people that were arrested, surrounding that January 6th stuff, have not been given due process. They've been held for inordinate amounts of time under charges that are nonsense.
Is it based on like a terrorism act? Because obviously under terrorism laws, the kind of normal due process goes right out the window, right?
It's based on leftist bullshit, is what it's really based on.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, like, that's the reality of it. These people are being held for inordinate amounts of time for crimes it's just a bunch of garbage. And, it's just the easiest way to say it. rather than going into legal technicalities. It's a bunch of trash, and those people should be set out. They should be let out like immediately, and just everybody get on with their life. Like, it was an insurrection. Horseshit. It was a bunch of trash, and it was a bunch of head trash for everybody. And they tried to blame it on Trump. They blame everything on it.
Yeah, I mean, he did encourage to go there for like a peaceful protest, and I mean, the same things just happened over here. I mean, guys may not have seen it, because I know I spoke to somebody from Australia recently, and they had no coverage of the riots going on over here at all on their mainstream media. Didn't even know it was happening.
I mean, I've seen it. It's not been on our mainstream media very much, but I don't watch a lot of mainstream media. I get my news elsewhere.
Yeah.
Which is why there's such a big push everywhere for, alternative media needs to be fact checked and all this other nonsensical bullshit.
Yeah, needs to be controlled by us, please. But yeah, there was.
I knew about it. I knew about a lot of it. So my thoughts and prayers have been going after you guys a lot with all that nonsense going on over there.
That's the same thing, though. That it's people rightly angry have gone out to do a protest. The protest was majority of it was peaceful. When it devolved into setting a Greggs on fire and a shoe shop on fire and trashing this, it was just youths taking advantage of the situation. It was
was it actually immigrants that were doing it?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, I don't care. I'll ask the question. Because look, it happens over here too. We've got immigrant gangs that are starting to trying to take over apartment complexes and stuff like that, and
they don't need to take over here. We give them hotels. We give them our hotels, and we let our veterans stay on the streets. It's the UK way. Scottish Prepper 73 said it's Waldorf and Stainforth or something. Them two old guys, I think. He's on about in the Muppets. That's the names there. So that's an important bit of information there. Philip Hull says, is migrating to a state that is your color / red or blue a big thing there?
Yes and no. So for me, I left a very liberal state and moved to a state that is majority, I guess I can say Republican. I mean, I would say more conservative, rather.
Yeah.
So I left a liberal state and moved to a more conservative state. So yes, absolutely. But there's also a lot of migration out of liberal states by the liberals, because they're now suffering under the weight of their own socialist garbage. So there's a mass exodus from California, which suffers under some crazy liberal policies, and liberal policies about everything under the sun. And you talk about paying exorbitant taxes, that's like one of the worst states. So they're fleeing en masse to places like Texas and Idaho, and they're getting the hell out of California because it's so expensive to live there now because of their socialist nonsense.
Yeah.
And so it's even happening where liberals are fleeing their own liberal states to get away from their own liberal policies. And the worst part of that is then they take their liberal nonsense to a state that doesn't want anything to do with it. So then, the question remains is, do they continue to vote for the same people that want the same trashy liberal socialist policies in the state that they just ran away from? Or do they have a more realistic perspective when they go to wherever it is they land to get away from their, the utopia that they just fled that was all liberal and crazy? So yes. I mean, yes is the answer to that question. For me, a lot of it has to do with, Second Amendment stuff. So Second Amendment for us is the right to bear arms. I left a state that was turning into like a little fascist shit show as far as, firearm rights.
You left the UK?
No. So in the United States over here, so each state has the ability to have its own legislation. Now, there's limitations to that. They can't override the Constitution. They can't do a lot of different things, or they say they can't override the Constitution. But the states can have their own laws. So there's states' rights and federal rights, etc. And so some states have a much more ridiculous gun control policy. And those are also, and you can look this up in the FBI's own statistics, the states with the craziest and most strict gun legislation and gun laws are the ones that have the most violence. And that's because you don't have an armed population that are defending themselves. Like if you look at Chicago,
Yeah.
Chicago is like the poster child for gun control. Like, oh, look at that, nobody has guns, etc. Yes, they do. The criminals have them. That's why there's a shooting there like every 3.5 minutes or some crazy shit like that.
Wow.
So somebody's getting shot in Chicago. Like 4 people probably got shot in Chicago while we've been having this conversation. But they've got the craziest, most stringent gun control laws almost probably in the United States next to California. But there's shootings there like every 5 seconds. But I digress.
Yeah.
So the answer, circling back around, yes, the answer is, can you move to a place that is more agreeable to your own personal feelings? Absolutely, you can. It's not cheap. It's not easy. Just like anywhere else, it costs money to do those things, which is unfortunate. But yes,
Yeah.
it's certainly possible.
So I just want to dive into that a second with obviously you've got your states and your governors and your state laws, like you say, and your state rights, and then federal level. If somebody was to get into power at federal level and force this gun control down across at a federal level, that's going to cause a massive upheaval, right? That's going to be something that preppers got to think about over there, surely, because that would supersede all state laws, I assume.
Yes. I mean, you've had states that have fought that type of stuff before.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. You've had states that have fought that fight before, but ultimately, the way it's supposed to work, if it's a federal law, it has to be upheld in the states.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, ultimately. So what about the UK? Are there differences in how do you guys, we do states. So how do you guys divide the UK just into counties?
So we have counties, but and there's no county laws that are on top of the national laws. It is just the law of the land. That is it. It's just as an example, we would have just federal law and then enforced across different things. There is little minor laws that are county by county, and I only know this from my younger days of cars with big blue lights on and blacked out windows and stuff like that. And you'd go into a certain county and certain items on your car would be banned in that county, but not in the others. So there is little ones like that, but not to that level. We're just, we're just one step away from communism.
I mean, we're all getting that way at this point.
Well, the Labour Party is a national socialist party. That's literally what they are. It's on their own manifesto. So we are at a point of socialism, which is the step before communism, as it were. So yeah, things are getting worse, and obviously I don't need to tell you what we can have firearms, so we can have shotguns, we can have rifles. It's strict registration, you've got to have a checks by the police, all the usual stuff. But it's then restricted on what you have. You can only have certain types of shotguns with so many rounds, only can hold 3 rounds, sort of thing. There's all sorts of weird little stipulations on there. No automatic weapons, obviously. Handguns were completely banned after one incident up in Scotland. It was a tragic thing. It was a school shooting. I know you guys know all about that, but one school shooting from one nutter took handguns away from the entire country.
Ridiculous.
So, I mean, and that's what's happening now. We've had somebody killed with a crossbow, so everyone's thinking, right, well, they're going to start doing this for crossbows. They've got this zombie knife law that's come in. So I don't know if you know about this.
Zombie knife law?
A zombie knife is, there's loads of different stipulations. Scottish Prepper 73, Miss Worm will post his channel for the people in the comments. He's done a great video on this. But it's like a certain type of knife. It's usually got multiple holes in or 2 points on it. You know what I mean? Like the fancy Mad Max style blades with the serrated edges and stuff like that. Now
Not
banned.
exactly practical anyway.
Yeah, but now completely illegal. because, you know, that's going to solve all our knife crime, despite the fact that most knife crime is done with kitchen knives, machetes, and gardening tools. They're going to ban
Right.
these zombie knives. But that also affects things like Rambo knives and survival knives. And I'm not saying a
Right.
Rambo knife is practical, but, you know, if you've paid £300 for a Rambo First Blood commemorative knife that sits on your shelf, suddenly that's illegal.
So you can't even own it inside your home. You'd have to
Nope.
give that up as well.
Nope. Go completely illegal. Can't own
That's
it, can't
absolutely
hide
crazy.
it, can't bury it. There's a guy on YouTube called Weapons Collector. He has a few, and he's had to modify his, basically take the point off the end and grind down a bit of the thing so it doesn't become a zombie knife anymore. But I was looking at the laws, and I've got a bread knife in the kitchen with 2 points on it and a serrated edge, which technically, by their guidelines, would be a zombie knife. So I can't cut my bread now.
Right? That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard of. It's crazy.
So yeah,
I mean, really, you know, most like knife violence is going to be done with like a normal like pocket style knife anyway. You know,
yeah.
I mean, zombie knife, whatever. That seems to be a bunch of craziness.
But I mean, I've got a controversial view over here compared to a lot of people. A lot of people think, you know, it's wonderful over here because we have such strict laws and stuff like that. And I don't think that's the case. I've been to states in America where they've got open carry laws, and you can see a guy walking down and stuff like that. And you know what? That's more of a deterrent than a police car driving past. You know what I mean? You ain't going to have little Joe Bloggs Chav with his carpet knife coming at you in an open carry state. You ain't gonna
No,
have
because he's
somebody
going to
running
get
at you
lead
with a
poisoning.
zombie knife. It's just
Yeah, because they'll get lead poisoning really quick. And the states that have the most relaxed gun laws have the lowest amounts of violence.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's Thomas from Austria says criminals always have guns because they don't care. People think Britain doesn't have guns. I live a stone throw from Manchester. I know there is many firearms in Manchester unregistered. Yeah. And I know the areas they'll be in and stuff like that. If SHTF happens and people think I'm going to be okay with my crossbow and my ground down zombie knife that's no longer a zombie knife, you're not. There is firearms in this country. You just don't have them.
Right. The criminals will always have guns.
This is the
And
problem.
disarming the legal citizens of any country. I mean, they always do that before they institute, you know, communism or fascism or some kind of dictatorship. I mean, look at it around the world, you know. I mean, what happened to the Germans before Hitler took power? You know, they disarmed them. They disarmed the German citizenry so they couldn't fight back against the regime that was about to take over. So just think about that for a second. You know, when they disarmed you, I mean, that's a pretty horrible, hateful part of history. But the fact of the matter is that Hitler disarmed his population before he completely took power.
Yeah,
So,
we don't learn from history, and the problem
right?
is, the Britain has a rich history of uprising if we don't like what's happening. But in the
As
last
it should be.
100 years, it's like we are just, oh, I'll just carry on paying my taxes and write a strongly worded letter. It's just all gone to
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not saying, you know, it's not the Wild Wild West over here.
emigration.
Right. Right. And look, you know, there's some people out there that always, you know, like, oh, you're a racist if you don't like immigration. No, that's not the case. Like, look, I come from, you know, the United States. We're supposed to be the melting pot, right? But there also comes a point where you hit critical mass. And at that
Yeah,
point, you can, you know, one of our slogans, you know, was send us your poor, send us your weak, send us your blah, blah, blah,
tired,
whatever.
hungry. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, send us everybody because we needed population then. Times have changed and there's still an immigration policy here. And people like me, I don't care what color you are. I don't care where you came from. It's, are you here for a good reason? Are you going to get a social security number? Are you going to pay your taxes just like everybody else? Are you going to do what you're supposed to do here? And are you going to assimilate to this culture? Don't
Yeah.
bring your culture here and expect everybody to practice your culture. If you come and you want to live here, then you should try to be an American, learn how to speak the language, learn how to assimilate into society.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that we have, like I've told you guys before, like from one side of the US to the other, like if you go into the central United States, it's almost like you're on a different planet than you are from where I am,
Yeah.
because there's so many different cultural differences from the original people that settled this country. And as we expanded west, there's just a lot of different cultures here, even
Yeah.
inside of the United States. We're not one homogenous, like not everybody talks the same, not everybody looks the same, not everybody eats the same things. You can get tons of different food and people that speak differently all throughout the country, all speaking the same language, mind you,
Yeah.
but
Just
it's just different.
yeah.
Just try your best to actually be a citizen of the US. Don't bring your problems here.
Yeah, I mean, I've been taught since a very young child, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. That's what they always say, sort of thing. And it's the same sort of thing. It's like you're either going to become a productive member of society or a leech. We don't want leeches. We want productive members of society. That's the
Yep.
be all and end all, right?
We've already got enough people that were born here that are leeching off society. We don't need to import anybody to do that.
Maybe we should just arrange swaps.
Yeah.
Send us your lazy.
Yeah. Right.
Lady J's corrected my statement, saying national laws, then Scotland has its own devolved powers in the Scottish Parliament, as do the Welsh Assembly. So they do have there is slight different laws between the countries that make up the UK, as it were. So and the zombie knife changed recently. Was this just England and Wales? I believe it was Scotland as well. So yeah, that was all over the place. Just scanning through the comments here before we move on. Thomas from Austria. Germany will start a new knife law in the public very soon. Result of knife crimes of the migrants. But this isn't right. So we're supposed to be talking about American politics, and I can feel myself about to get onto a rant. You take away, right? But you take away our guns. We use the knives. You take away the knives, we'll use sticks. Take away the sticks, we'll use hands. We're going to just have a nation of paraplegics because we can't have our limbs, which can also kill people. We've all got a deadly weapon parked on our frigging drive. 2 tons of vehicle that you could squash somebody with. Stop banning shit. Solve the problem.
Or arm the population.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be kind of hard to have a whole lot of knife crime if everybody's carrying a gun on their head.
That's it. There we go. That's a new campaign for the next election. Vote Mike, arm the population. That's
right.
My own political party. There we go. That's going to be the next step. Looks like my state may be headed towards open carry. Time will tell. Tuck, remind us what state you're in. I can't remember what he said. He has told me before. Disarmed, law-abiding citizens are easy prey for armed criminals. There we go. There you go. It's
common sense.
How does it? Well, yeah, the one thing politicians lack in every country in the world.
Oh, because we're just cattle.
Yeah.
The reality is they don't actually care about us, and therein lies the problem.
Eat, sleep, breed, pay your taxes.
Pretty much. And when you're not useful anymore, it's time for you to die.
See, this is a different point of view. This is the point of view I get off a lot of people. I'm thrilled we don't have guns, honestly. The idea of guns in general public is horrifying. Think how many more terrorists would kill if they had gun access.
But that's not true. So to counter that point, how many terrorists would be likely to grab whatever gun you're talking about, whether they have fully automatic machine guns or if they just have a one-shot rifle, it doesn't matter. Terrorists are less likely to attack an area where you have armed citizens. The same way with criminals. Yeah. Criminals are less likely to commit crimes because the problem is you never know if you have a legally armed citizenry. You never know where you could get shot from. So it could be grandma pulling her revolver out of her handbag to take care of you because you're threatening other people or you're trying to shoot other people. So it's a lot harder for a terrorist to do terrorist activities if they're trying to do that in an armed area. an area where everybody has the potential to be armed, which is why you have a state here that has very, very easy, very relaxed gun laws. The crime is so low because criminals never know who's going to have a gun. And that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but to be devil's advocate, just for Miss Worm here, is the counter to that the fact that if every man and his dog is carrying, a simple act of road rage that might have ended in a little fist fight could end up in somebody killed?
Not necessarily, because both people could then be armed.
So we have a shootout instead.
I mean, look, I would say this, like, if you look at those incidents that happen, like the amount of those incidents that happen are so much lower in states, at least here, in states that have normal gun laws.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to want to get out of your car and road rage at everybody if you know that the ultimate end of that could be you getting lead poisoning. So there's a lot less violence in general because you have to really be committed at that point to that violence if you know that the other person could be carrying a firearm. And in general, when you yourself are carrying a firearm, you think to yourself, before I take this action, everything is going to be weighed against me, including if I have a firearm on my person at this time.
Yeah.
So you know that you're going to be accountable for your actions. So even if you never even draw your firearm, the fact that you were armed during whatever confrontation that you were having is going to weigh against you in a court of law.
Yeah.
So people in general act differently because they know that the general population around them is armed. Like the state that I live in, concealed carry laws or concealed carry is very easy to get. I have no clue when I go to the grocery store, when I go to the gas station, when I go anywhere, if somebody else is carrying a weapon.
Yeah.
And that's just fine. Because in the state that I live in, I've gotten in no confrontations.
Yeah.
No physical confrontations. Because there's a lot of people here that carry concealed.
Yeah.
And in general, it makes people a whole lot more aware of what they're about to do. So I disagree. I mean, look, there are always going to be crazy people that do crazy things.
But crazy people will do crazy things with knives, right? If we had an incident on one of the bridges in London and someone was going around with a machete, stabbing innocent people, and it took somebody finding an oar to try and take this guy down, and he'd already got, how many people had he got before then? And how many would he have got if there was a concealed carry in that area? Would he have got anywhere with his little knife trying to cause havoc?
Absolutely. And look, if you could guarantee that everybody would be disarmed, and therein lies the problem. We all know that criminals will not be disarmed. So if
That's the problem, yeah.
If there was a 100% guarantee that the entirety of the population would not have a firearm, then it would be different. But you can't guarantee that to me or to anybody else. I mean, look, you said it yourself. You know that there's people not too far from you that are illegally armed, and that puts you at a severe disadvantage. And that's not fair to you as a human being. Yeah. Nobody should own the monopoly on violence, period.
Yeah.
And right now,
without rule of law, that is going to be apparent beyond belief. People are not going to realize how bad that is until it gets to that point that you've got these armed gangs that are just going to control the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, scary.
It is scary.
Tuck says, I wander around with a pistol and 49 rounds. Am I not trustworthy? My government wanders around with warships and the size of a neighborhood. Are they not trustworthy? And he's from Florida.
No, they're not. They're not trustworthy. And that's the problem.
Don't trust the government. Have you learned nothing as a prepper?
I mean,
channel shut down.
He's absolutely right, though. He's absolutely right. I mean, as far as the whole, concealed carry thing, I want to be like a goddamn pirate ship. Like, if anything ever happens to me, I want to have 20 goddamn pistols on me, and I just want a wall of smoke coming off of me. Like, if somebody ever messes up, just throw them. Like, as soon as they're empty, just throw them. It would just be like a wall of smoke, and just hails of lead flying, like a pirate ship. my life and the life of the people that I love is worth everything to me. So would I defend that? Absolutely. And
Yeah.
everybody should have the right to do that.
Yeah.
And if somebody is being like completely crazy and trying to hurt, kill, murder, or otherwise just harm somebody else as a responsible citizen, I should have the right to take action. So that's just my opinion. Everybody, look, we don't live in utopia. There is no real peace,
Yeah.
not even on a personal level. You put 50 people in a neighborhood that's walled off from society and nobody has a gun, someone is going to do harm to someone else in your little walled off utopia. I hate to say it. I wish it were different. It's not.
Yeah.
At some point, there's going to be a murder. There's going to be a fight. Somebody's going to hit somebody with a garden rake, and then you're going to ban garden rakes, and nobody can rake their leaves. It's just going to be ridiculous.
Yeah. And like I say, it devolves into whatever they got. That's what. Why do people think knife crime is so high here? And gun crime is high here. We just don't. Mainstream media don't put it out there. I know there's shootings daily in Manchester that don't make the news.
Right.
So it's
And unfortunately,
censorship.
the vast majority of your police are not on.
Yep. We had a shooting in a nice area where I used to live, and it was actually one of the more desirable areas of the area we're at. And there was somebody pulled into the back of a van and executed gangland style in the back of a van. And it was all over, like your local Facebook groups, and the people come on there going, "Oh, he was such a lovely boy." No, he wasn't. He was a drug dealer. But you're not going to say that.
Right.
And all of this didn't make the news, didn't make the local news, didn't make the national news, wasn't talked about anywhere. So people who think we live in this gun-free society, you are delusional. Keep watching BBC News. Philip Hull, does it make dicks polite if guns are everywhere? Like, say sorry quicker. Assholes less assholey.
Yes. I mean, look, assholes are always going to asshole. You can't stop that. But is something less likely to devolve into violence? I believe yes. And I mean, I've seen the evidence of that. I've seen people that were kind of bickering with each other, and it just kind of tapers off and goes away. Like the amount of like fisticuffs violence you get is much lower in a carry state, like where everybody's armed.
Yeah. There you go. 615,627 guns in England legally held as of 2023. And that's just the legal ones.
Right.
There you go.
Well,
so
in the United States, there's something like 3 guns for every person.
Yeah.
So,
20 of them are yours for your hail of. No comment, he says.
There was a boating accident, and I lost all my firearms in a boating accident.
Yeah. All right. Can't hate them. Let's go back to politics. We've gone completely down firearms. Well, we talked about the January 6th thing. I was looking up on that, and that trusted source Wikipedia. I roll. Says the goals of this was to disrupt and delay electoral college vote count, but it's the second one that I want to pull up on. It says the goal of this was to pressure Congress and Vice President Mike Pence to overturn the election of Joe Biden in favor of Trump. Is that a thing? Do they have that power?
No.
Okay, there you go. Simple.
So there was a point at which the vote of Mike Pence would have changed the election. So, but I think it was pretty much common knowledge to anybody with half a brain that Mike Pence wasn't going to do that. So, I guess there was a chance that Mike Pence could have, changed the result of the election, or actually, I think it was more like he could have contested it. I don't remember exactly, so you'll have to forgive me for that because it's all just such a bunch of nonsense. So obviously there was no pressure exerted. And I think the point of the January 6th nonsense was literally just that. It was I think it was organized, and was there a legitimate protest? Yes. The actions that happened on January 6th where people were breaking into Congress and all that other nonsense, that was organized, and that was political theater. So that happened on purpose, and there was a bunch of people that were drug into it, probably just kind of following the wave, feeling like, yeah, we're doing something great here. Well, no, they weren't. It was stupid. And what people don't realize is, I'm sorry, let me finish that before I go off on another tangent. So January 6th was a sham. There was legitimate protests. 99.9% of that protest was peaceful. And the government uses things just like this as a catalyst to be able to do things that they otherwise could not do.
Yeah.
So it's just like, after 9/11, we get the Patriot Act passed here. And the Patriot Act was the single greatest stripping of the rights of the United States citizens in the history of the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
There were 2 planes on 9/11, and 3 buildings came down. A lot of people don't remember that, but there was a 3rd Trade Center building that came down, Building 7.
I remember.
It
I remember watching all the conspiracy things, and you actually hear one of them saying "pull Building 7" or something like that.
Fell down into its own footprint, which I'm no engineer or anything, but I'm pretty sure buildings don't just fall down into their own footprint at free fall speed. But anyway, before I go off onto that, so after that happens, we get the Patriot Act. So what happens after January 6th? After January 6th, they ram through a bunch more nonsensical legislation. They surround the Capitol building in chain link fence. So now protesting there is almost impossible. They have the National Guard stationed everywhere. They're not even feeding or housing the National Guard properly. Like, some of these guys were sleeping on the floors of parking garages, like, ridiculous. Anyway, it was all a bunch of horseshit, is the reality of it. It's all just political theater. And there are people that are paying the price for their involvement in that. They're either unintentional or just emotional involvement in the moment entering the Capitol building. And that was just an extremely bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was just the fact that they worded it that to pressure him, the vice president, to overturn the election. I just didn't know if that was a power that they actually had. How could that possibly be? You know what I mean?
I'm not 100% sure, so I'm not going to sit here and say that, for certain. But what I believe the point of contention is that Pence could have initiated the contesting of the election results.
Right.
So it was on him to initiate that. Like, I don't think this is correct. I'm initiating a investigation of this, and he didn't do that. And that's what they may have been trying to. That's what part of the protest may have been about. But there was an enormous Trump rally not too far from the Capitol building where Trump was in attendance personally. That's before they started trying to shoot him and blow him up and all this other crazy stuff. But and that was 100% peaceful. And they tried to say that he was orchestrating the entirety of what was going on somewhere else while he was at a peaceful rally. It really is just a bunch of theater. So what I would say is, don't believe everything you hear. And if you're watching anything on any mainstream media anywhere on the planet, just remember that somebody is controlling that, and they're trying to control the narrative, and they're trying to control you and the way that you think.
Yeah, there's an agenda. There's always an agenda.
Absolutely. It is up to you as a private citizen and a human being to do your own research and make up your own mind.
Yeah. And I'd encourage that with politics on any country, at any level. Excuse me. But to just look at policies. Don't vote for a party because granddad did and because great granddad did. Look at what they're offering now. Look at the policies now. Anywhere in the world, I would recommend that. I do that all the time. I have no set fixed political loyalty to a party. I look at who's best for me and my country at the time. So
absolutely.
There we go. Let's talk prepper now. Is there an aftermath? Is there something to prepare for if Trump wins, if Kamala wins?
Yes.
Either of these.
Yes.
I mean, obviously there's been lots of talk of civil unrest and second civil war. That film came out, and obviously that's going to spark a lot of people's kind of fuel people's thoughts with that. But do you think that's a real possibility with this election? There's lots of people threatening it, lots of YouTube channels saying, be ready.
I definitely do. And let me just say that I hate YouTube channels that are trying to fear porn everybody into clicking on them. There's a lot of those out there, so be careful what you watch. But there's definitely
you will die unless you become a member of my channel. Like, sorry, carry on.
Or I love the ones that are like 2 days left until Armageddon. Like, come on, dude, really? 2 days? Oh shit! I forgot to take the trash out. Damn it!
2 days left till Armageddon, but I've monetized this video, which gets paid to me at the end of the month.
Great. So if it was 2 days left until Armageddon, you wouldn't be posting a video. You'd be digging a hole to hide in. So anyway, I think no matter what happens with the election, and first and foremost, I don't think that we're going to know the day of the election what the results are. I think that's going to be something that is going to be highly contested. It's going to go to court. It may have to be decided by the House of Representatives.
Wow.
Which is part of the process here. If the Electoral College is not clear, there's no clear winner from the Electoral College. It gets decided in the House of Representatives.
So unless it's a landslide, then you think that's what's going to happen?
Yes, I think no matter what happens, whichever side wins, whichever side loses, and in my humble opinion, I think Kamala's going to win because they're going to rig the election. I think Trump's going to fight it, and no matter who wins, the country is very polarized. There's a very large percentage of the population that wants Trump to win. There's a large percentage of the population that wants Kamala to win, and both sides are going to be angry. If we'll decide that whatever side doesn't get their way is going to be angry.
Yeah.
So there could be a lot of violence around urban areas if Trump wins. I mean, hell, there could be a lot of violence around urban areas if Kamala wins, even just because that's par for the course. But I think there's definitely a real possibility of a lot of violence. The problem is that this isn't like civil war here is not regional. It's not like the North versus the South or East versus West or anything like that. It would be more like urban versus rural. So, the urban areas are heavily liberal, heavily on the left. And a lot of your suburban or rural populations are more libertarian or Republican conservative. So I think the Civil War now would be a hell of a lot messier than anything we've ever seen in this country before. Whereas, the first American Civil War, it was North versus South, so that was very regional.
Yeah. Would it still be regional based on states, or even in like a very conservative state, do you still get a liberal city?
Yes. I mean, I think all of the cities in the United States have a heavy liberal or left contingent. So I really think, if there was a civil war, some states would not have too many problems just because of lower population densities. And I think because they're so very conservative that the left would not really want to engage in violence. So it'd be like, I think we're just going to get our ass beat. We'll just stay home and be unhappy. But in larger population centers where you have huge, urban environments, I think that is where that violence is going to happen. Or it's going to spill out into the suburbs and maybe even into some of the, more rural areas, and that's where it would get messy. And like, again, there's no clear-cut line. It's not like you can just divide everything right down the middle and go, okay, everybody on this side, now fight. It's not going to work like that. It's going to be real messy.
Is it just going to be civil unrest though, or is it going to be? I mean, because a civil war would warrant organization, right? Generals, governors taking charge, seceding, things like that. Or is it just going to be civil unrest between students versus everyone else?
I think if a real and true civil war broke out here, I think it would be a long, messy, disorganized period of civil unrest and violence. And if it actually went to a real war, there would be a long interceding period of time before you could actually have a clear cut side to, and then geographically, so like I was saying, the problem is it's not like it would just be this state versus this state, because there's a whole lot of people in both states that, you know, like I said, it would be more like urban environment versus rural environments,
Yeah.
because the vast majority of your more conservative people are out in the rural areas. And quite frankly, that's where most of your preppers and stuff are here anyway. There's not a ton of city preppers. I imagine there's some, but the vast majority of the people that live in the city aren't thinking about, the long-term solution of these problems. So it'd be more of like your suburban and rural people.
Does that reflect on armament as well? On like more rural people are more likely to have a larger cache of firearms and ammo than somebody who lives in a city block sort of thing?
I mean, it's likely. I mean, I guess it would really depend on the state. So states that have very restrictive gun laws, a lot of those, liberal strongholds wouldn't have a lot of people that were, armed to the teeth, so to speak.
Yeah.
Whereas, in a more rural environment, you kind of need firearms, for certain things. So yes, I mean, the answer to that question is yes. Like, even if you're very left leaning, you likely don't have a huge cache of firearms unless you're an Antifa or something, and you're planning on like enacting the Communist Manifesto on the American population or some crazy shit like that. But I think, yeah, I mean, by and large, I think rural people will be armed better, but that doesn't necessarily mean we have the automatic upper hand, because the heaviest amount of population are in the urban areas.
Yeah.
So, and drug
numbers
dealers have a lot of guns.
Yeah.
Criminals have a lot of guns. They might not all work that well, but they still have a bunch of them. So who knows what side they would take?
I mean, I'll pull up Philip's question. It kind of follows this. He says, "Are people buying extra boomsticks and self-defense things due to concern over the election? Do people have more cameras to make sure that a camera covers their dog kennel in their backyard, etc.?" So,
yes.
Are you
Yes,
seeing that? Yeah.
Yes.
How about? I mean, without detail, OPSEC and all that lovely stuff. Are you physically prepping more because of this, or are you still at the level where you think, no, my preps are sufficient, let's just see what happens?
I mean, without jeopardizing anything, of course, yes. Like, am I adding extra things? Yes. I've been prepping for a long time. I'm pretty good. But it certainly doesn't take it off my mind. So for me, I guess it's more like I'm in that last minute stuff mode,
Right.
where it's like, ooh, I could really use a bunch more seasonings, or ooh, I kind of like that. Let me grab some of that. Or, I could really use some extra coffee. Anybody that watches my channel knows how I feel about coffee. So,
doesn't matter how good or terrible it is, he just needs coffee.
I mean, sometimes, any port in a storm, but yes, the answer to that question all the way around, and even for myself, is yes. Like, are people buying more firearms and ammunition and prepper related items? Yes, absolutely. I have six cameras on my home.
Yeah. Are more people starting prepping? Are you seeing more new preppers?
Absolutely. And in all honesty, I have literally talked to people, because I'm not super open about the whole prepping thing, but I do talk about it with some people, just because I have a vested interest in seeing other people that I care about or that I like wanting, or I would like to see them prepared. And part of that is selfish, because I don't want them knocking on my door. Right. So have your own stuff, don't knock on my door. But I have seen people that have completely come around the other side of the bend and are now talking to me about, well, like, what would you start with? And that's a great thing, though. All those people are like starting to get prepared.
Yeah. Is it too late?
It's never too late. I mean, look, even if, if you're not a prepper and you're just watching this for the first time and something that either myself or Mike has said has led you to the point where you want to start that journey, it's not real hard to get a week's worth of supplies together.
Yeah.
And that's just a springboard. It's a starting point. Like, okay, well, how many people are in my home? How many calories do I need to feed them for a week? And not taking into account, like I need to eat filet mignon every night, but I just need to feed people for 7 days.
Yeah.
How much food do I need? What does everybody actually eat? How do I cook it? How do I prepare it? And how much water do I need? Because you can get all the food you want. If you don't have water, you're going to die. So literally just making an emergency plan for 1 week will put you, and that's combined with what you already have sitting in your normal everyday use pantry, right? So let's say you have, average person could be maybe like a week worth of normal provisions in your cabinets, and let's say you put a week's worth of emergency food away. So now you've got 2 weeks before you have to start panicking. That puts you better off than probably 90% of the people around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's so much better to have that extra week than not.
Yeah. Tuck agrees. He said it's too late for supplies if the shelves are empty. However, the
Yeah,
deadline for skills and knowledge come much sooner.
true.
Yeah.
But let's, not everybody is Bear Grylls. Not everybody is going to take off into the wild wilderness to survive. I think the vast majority of people just need to get a basic plan of how to bug in, how to stay safe, how to stay warm, and how to stay fed,
Yeah.
and just how to stay alive. I'm hoping that none of our situations degrade into like Mad Max. I need to learn how to survive for the rest of my life without any society or any infrastructure. I don't foresee that happening. So I think it's, localized short-term emergencies that we really need to be prepared for. And
Yeah.
I think anybody that's out there, and I agree with him, so don't think that I'm saying that skills and knowledge are not important, because they totally are.
Yeah.
But even just for your normal layperson who's just starting to get into this and really just starting to make that journey, don't let that discourage you.
No.
Let all this information be a catalyst for you to do something about it, because it'll help you sleep better at night, and it'll
Yeah.
stop you from having to reach out for help. It just
And
gives
yeah,
you
and that would be, I mean, I would think about that as a system as well. It's hard. The skills should only be, you only need to learn the skills according to what you got. If you're just stocking an extra week's worth of food, you've got the skills to cook food, right? You've got the skills to eat and open a can. Don't then go and buy your firearms without ever shooting one and stuff like
right.
that. So the skills come in when you want to take that step. Yeah. There's no point getting a bow or something like that if you've never fired a bow. Yeah. So make sure the skills align with the direction of your prepping. That's what I would say for that one. Don't just buy and think I'm ready. If you're getting
Right.
stuff that requires skill to use, learn it. Do the task.
Yeah, do the things. Do the things for sure.
We'll do this as the last one and the last bit of it, because I know I've kept you for longer than an hour, like I said. Phil says, if the US turns chaotic, is there a particular US product we should order here ahead of time, which may be difficult to acquire after? Now, I'm not sure about specific products, but I mean, have a look what you buy. If it's from the US, then obviously. But the reason I pulled the question up is this is the next one that I want to go into. What's the knock-on effect of that situation in the States across the world? Because we see a chaotic world at the moment. Yeah, we see crazy dictators and presidents in other countries doing ridiculous things, and it's teetering on World War III. Now, a civil war in the States at this point, what's that going to do to the rest of the world? Because most of the economy is based on the US dollar, right?
I mean,
At
for
the
now,
moment.
at the moment, yeah, at the
Yeah.
moment.
And do you
It's
think
definitely.
if that happened, do you see the US becoming a target? Because suddenly you're fighting amongst yourselves. You're not going to be defending the borders as much.
I don't really see I don't think the U.S. would ever be a land invasion here. simply because it's kind of like what the Japanese said, that they would never try to invade the United States because there'd be a gun behind every blade of grass. Because we are an armed society, and with 3 guns per person, it wouldn't be hard for us to just share out some firearms to other citizens to help defend us from an invasion.
Unlike here, just come and invade, we'll chase you with a kitchen knife.
Right. But not if it has 2 points.
Not
and
if
has
that's
holes in it.
not my bread knife.
Right. So I think everything, yes, is the answer to that question. Will it disrupt other countries? Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the crisis or the conflict in Ukraine, it's already affected the rest of the world. I mean, Ukraine was a breadbasket. So all of the wheat and grains that they were exporting took a serious hit, slowed that down immensely. So that had a big effect on African nations that imported almost all of their wheat from Ukraine.
Mhm.
So everything that happens regionally has a global effect because we're a global society now, for better or for worse. I think the US is a net importer. We don't export that much anymore. We import everything from everybody else, but that, of course, has economic effects on those people that are shipping goods to us.
Yeah.
We export a lot of fuel, a lot of natural gas, and liquid propane. So that'll certainly have an effect on those people that are waiting for those exports from us, and it certainly could slow those things down. I think widespread civil unrest here will definitely be damaging to our infrastructure as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the more damage that happens to our infrastructure, which we've already had a lot of damage to our infrastructure through accidents. So every time a part of the infrastructure is damaged, it slows something else down. So we've had incidents here where we have ports that are completely backed up with ships that can't get offloaded. So there's ships that have been, I don't know if it's still the case, but we had a point at which ships were sitting out at sea waiting over a month to get unloaded.
Yeah.
Because of different issues that were going on here. So yes, there's always knock-on effects. It doesn't matter. Like, even if you take I hate to say this as if somebody else's country is insignificant, and I don't mean it that way. I guess let's go with like a South American country like Brazil, just because I'm doing a Brazilian ration, right? So there are definitely things that Brazil exports that we import. One of those is meat.
Yeah.
So if there's a huge political or violent upheaval in Brazil, it's going to have an impact on us.
Yeah.
And then when we can't get that meat from Brazil, we're going to reach out to other countries that export meat. We're going to try to get it from them. It's going to put a strain on them. It's going to take stock from other people. So there's always a knock-on effect, because we're not islands anymore. Whereas when we were still with muskets and ships with sails on them, if there was violence over in, let's say, England, it wouldn't have affected America.
No,
but now
everyone was very self-sufficient.
Right. So we have a very different relationship now, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But we're tied together. There's a lot of financial things that we do together, military stuff that we engage in together. So anything that happens here is going to affect a lot of places around the world, and we all are intertwined at this point.
Yeah, and you talk about like maybe not exporting as much from the USA, so that it wouldn't affect it directly there. But a lot of the infrastructure for a lot of things we use every day is over there. The amount of server farms that are over there. We're sat on YouTube, right? And most of that's hosted over there. There's a lot of infrastructure that could be damaged that could affect worldwide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. Like I said, we're all just so intertwined now. It's kind of hard to get away from it.
Yeah, well, hopefully the powers that be will all shake hands and we'll all sing Kumbaya and everything will be fine.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, right.
And we can save a fortune on preps. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. We went from politics to rants and it was wonderful, which I enjoy.
Maybe next time, maybe if we do this again, we should have a script, because otherwise we're just going to keep going. We're just going to keep flying off in other directions.
That's fine. We lose some people, we gain some people. Some people like the rants. It's fine. Before we go though, We've got 24 people in here at the moment. We've had people in now all night, and a lot of people watch it on the replay. I am going to put up the advert for Ration Nerd one last time so you can see what his channel's all about.
Let's not do it.
Let's not do it.
Oh, ow, God damn it.
There we go. So if you don't
That's epic.
already know, make sure you go over at Ration Nerd and give him a sub. He's got some great content. Why the leg wax?
I mean, okay, so the thing is, over here, it's called like a Brazilian wax. So when
Right.
women go to like, or I guess maybe some men, if they're absolutely off their shit, go to these salons where you get Brazilian wax. So I was doing a Brazilian ration. So for me, for some reason, because I'll have these goofy ideas, right? So my goofy idea was I'm doing a Brazilian ration, the whole Brazilian waxing. Well, I'm not waxing my crotch. It's not happening. It's just not. So
and
I thought the
YouTube
missus-
might demonetize that one.
It's very possible. I guess I could try to get it up there as some like kind of educational video about crotch waxing, but that's not what the channel's about, and I'm not doing that. So I was like, it'd be kind of funny, to like play on the Brazilian theme to do like a wax thing. And Mrs. Ration Nerd uses those wax strips on her legs. So I'm like, do you have any of those wax strips? So this last minute idea, I'm like, so I'll just go Brazilian for the channel, right? And so I just threw the camera on. And before I decided against it, I'm like, hurry up and do this because I'm going to change my mind. And I wanted to change my mind at the end, but the strip was already on and she just went, yoink. And let me tell you what, I got a whole new respect for women that do waxing after that moment. I've seen videos of guys that like have had their nose waxed and stuff, but that spot on my leg still is hairless. And I mean, as you can tell, I'm like a blonde gorilla, right? Like I got hairy legs, but I'm blonde, so it's hard to see. But that sucked. But it was kind of funny. At least I thought it was funny. That was the whole point, is just to like bring viewers to the channel to do something funny. I like having fun because if you don't find some time to laugh, even with everything that's going on, as educated as I may feel like I am about, politics in the world, you've got to find time to smile. You've got to find time to laugh. And so I was just trying to, I like to make my people laugh.
Yeah.
I like it when my people get on my videos and have a good time. That's why I don't take it too seriously. And that was just more of the same. I just Ration Nerd goes Brazilian, so I just had her rip some hair off my leg for shits and giggles. And that kind of sucked. Like, I'm a little pissed that only 200 people have watched that video. I'm like, do you guys know how bad that sucks?
Listen,
And to only have 200 people watch that video.
This is the laws of YouTube, right? If you hurt yourself doing something, if you hike for 4 days solid and your feet are in bits, it's still the lowest grossing video on your channel.
You're an animal, dude. You're a beast. I was rooting for you the whole way. Seriously, you're a beast, man. That's good shit.
Right.
I'm actually looking at the bald spot on my leg right now, kind of lamenting the fact that I did that.
Is it like an OCD? You keep feeling it?
I mean, I can kind of feel it when I have pants on because there's no hair there. So I feel like this smooth spot on my leg, which is kind of weird. It's definitely, I do not recommend. That's a Ration Nerd, right? Do not recommend waxing anything.
Miss Worm said some bloke got his nads ripped off doing that. Yes.
There's zero chance. Zero chance of that happening to me. Zero.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here again. You're always welcome.
Thanks for having me, dude. I appreciate it.
Would you like to say goodbye to our lovely audience?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Be well. Keep prepping. Come watch me eat some rations. And there we go. I got to go the other way. Watch Mike, because he's got a lot of really good content, and that's no bullshit. I watch Mike, and I like to see the difference between, prepping in the UK and prepping here, and he's got good content. So watch him, and then watch me, and you'll be a much better person for it.
There you go. I don't even have to sign out anymore. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget, like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that lovely stuff, and we'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.
Yeah.